Welcome back to Thistle Hill Farmstead. My name's Todd, and today we're going to be doing a rear brake job on this 2018 Honda Recon. It's a TRX 250, and it's got some rear brake problems, so we're going to be working on those today. So come along with us. Here's what we're going to be working on today. As I said, this is a 2018 Honda FourTrax TRX 250, and what happened is we had some friends over, and their kids were riding the ATVs, and when one of them stopped, they applied the parking brake. So you can push this in and then apply the parking brake so that it locks the rear brake. And when the next youngster got on, he didn't realize this brake was set, and he just took off riding. And it wasn't until he came back and somebody else started to get on it, they're like, wow, is this parking brake been set the whole time? And what it did was it damaged the rear brake pads. I hope all it did was wore the brake pads down. I'm hoping it didn't like gall or damage the drum that the brake pads go in, but we'll find out once we get that off. So I've got the parts to do the job. Here are the brake pads, and you can see the part number there. And here I also bought an O-ring that goes back in the case here. Not sure that it's going to need it. It goes right in here in this case, but I got it anyway just in case I did need it, and that way I have it if we need it. So let's go ahead and get this thing up on the jacks, and we'll start by taking this rear tire off and then disassembling this side to pull those brake pads out. I've got it up off the ground now, so let's start the process by taking this rear tire off. So let's start by taking this tire off. These lug nuts are a 17 millimeter lug nut. So let's see if we can get. Okay, that was easy. 4 of those. All right, the tire is off. The next thing I want to do is take this cotter pin out here that holds this axle nut on. So let's get that out. Just need to bend it down. Both ways. And then squeeze her together. Hey, look at that. Not bad. Hey, not bad. That's definitely reusable. All right, let's see what size this axle nut is. So I did find a socket that would fit it. That's a 30 millimeter. And let's see if we can get that off. You guys don't be giving me grief for using chrome sockets on the impact now. There we go. All right. Still looks good. Nice and greasy in there. Let's see, this should come, just slide off now. And it does. That's good. All right, and the splines look good on that. Okay, so let's set this to the side. Yeah, that came off of there nicely. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and take these cables off. We need to take the cables off, and then we need to take this skid plate off underneath to be able to pull the hub off, and then we'll get these nuts off. But in preparation for that, I think I'll go ahead and put some penetrating oil on there so that when it comes time to get it off, it will come off easy. Oops, lost my straw there. Let's see. Just go ahead and goop that boy up nice. All right. And while that's soaking in, we'll focus on getting these cables off. So this is just a matter of twisting these off. There's a wing nut. I did see a guy who created a cool little tool. He welded something inside of a socket so that it would fit on the end of there and go around the wing nut, and then he could just take a power tool and zip those off so that you didn't have to do this, which is twisting these things off like this. But I don't have a fancy homemade tool, so I'm just going to do it like this. Yeah, I kind of see why now. There's one. Okay, so now that we have those wing nuts off, we can just pull the spring back and the cable back. All right, watch yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put these pieces back on here so that I don't have to look for them when I get ready to reassemble everything. There we go. So there's one. Pull this other one off here. Okay. Then just take this little button out here that holds it together. There we go. So those two are there. Well, I should have pulled them out of the case here too. Let me do that, because we need to, this case will come off, so we'll need to have this all out. So let's take that one off. And this one out. There we go. Now I'll slide everything back together so that it's here when I'm ready to reassemble. Okay, there's one. Here's the next one. Okay, we'll just get those out of the way. I'll stick them over here behind the shock. All right. So now we're ready to see how easy these big nuts come off. So I went and grabbed a couple of zip ties to hold this brake lever back while I try to bust this nut loose. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see if that gives us any, that's definitely going to keep the wheel from spinning and help me with getting this nut loose. So I've got my persuasion here. And let me see if now I can get this loose. There we go. I believe it's coming. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's going to be just tight enough that I'm not going to be able to unscrew it by hand. Gonna have to use this big wrench the whole time. Let me get a rag to wipe my hands off. And I went and got a pair of channel locks. Maybe this will help get them off too. Oh yeah. These are very fine threads on this axle, so you want to be sure you use some penetrating oil or some type of oil to help it unscrew. And when you're putting this back together, you also want to make sure that you have it threaded properly when it starts, so you don't damage these threads. It's coming. Like I said, this is a 2018 model, so it's not too terribly old. So things are not too gumped up and stuck. But if you have an older model, you may have more difficulty getting this stuff off. Wow, come on. It looked like it was close to being off. There we go. And we'll slide that off. I'm going to get this dirt out of here so that it's not getting into the threads. And I'll spray a little bit of this in here to clean it up. There we go. Okay. And then again, give it a little squirt here. Gonna wipe this off because I do see there's a little bit of dirt that came with that other one. All right, let's see how easy this one comes off. Let me try it with the channel locks at first, just to see. Oh yeah, it'll turn with these. Oh yeah, that was not bad at all. Okay, now that I have that off, there's a couple of little washers that are here that need to come off. 1, 2 washers there. And then I believe there's like a little rubber seal. So I'm going to keep these in the order that they came off. I'm just stacking everything here to keep everything in the order that it came off. Yeah, that all looks good. Now, what I'm going to do is take this bottom plate off here. I'll go ahead and cut this off too, but I'll take this skid plate off. A couple of bolts that hold it on. I think there's 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 that hold it on. So let's go ahead and get that off of there. Let's go ahead and get these bolts off that hold the skid plate on. They are a number 12 or 12 millimeter. So let's see. There is one here. One. So I noticed this one has a collar on it, so I'm going to keep that there. This one doesn't have a collar, it just has a washer. So I'm going to kind of keep these in the order that they came out. And then there's one on the side here. Okay. So I'm going to set these back here. And the order that they came out, is that it? Yeah, okay, that's it. And we got some dirt in there, so I'll clean that out after or before we put it back on. I'll clean this up a bit so that when I crack this case open, it's not getting any dirt or anything inside. So now I'm going to take, let me go ahead and cut this zip tie back off. Okay. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts to take out to get this case off. This one here is a drain plug, so that doesn't need to come out. And also, you don't have to take this arm off. It can stay on. And then the brake shoes will be right inside this cover here. All right, so let's get these off of those. Also 12, yeah, let's see. I may have to crack these loose with a ratchet because this doesn't have a whole lot of force. All right, so let's see if we can crack these. Again, these are 12 millimeter. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and last one, 5. Okay, let's get those out. Okay, we got those out. I'll just set those right there. And now this case has a little area here that you can pry on it to get it open. I'll show you that. It's right here. So there's this little area that you can put a screwdriver in there or a little pry bar and pry on it. You can also kind of tap on these ears here too. This is all aluminum, so you want to make sure you don't get too aggressive with it because you don't want to break it. So let's put you back over here and I'll see if I can get that open. Here's my screwdriver. Let's see. Yeah, it's moving a little bit. Just take my hammer. Tap on it a little bit. Trying to feel and see if there's any other points to pry. So I'm going to continue to tap a little bit on it, ever so gently. I don't know if you can see it is separating there. See if I can get my screwdriver down in here. Okay. Get another screwdriver so I can kind of work both sides at the same time. Okay, I went and got another screwdriver, so let me see if I can kind of work both of this at the same time. There we go. There we go. Okay. She's coming off. There we go. Okay. Well, you know, the pads don't look worn at all on here. But like I said, the issue we're having, and maybe they're just galled, the issue we're having is anytime you put on the brakes, they just lock up. And like I said, we had someone ride it while they had the brake on. And I think what it did is just got these so hot that it just galled the surface of the pads. Because you can see, the pads look brand new. There's no wear on the pads at all, but they're just galled up. So I'll replace them anyway, and check this and just make sure that it looks good too. I'll just put a little sandpaper on this, clean it up, and then put the new pads on. Yeah, you can see it's got quite a bit of dust in here. Okay, so let's do that. Let me clean this out a little bit first. Now you see that whole axle can slide back and forth. Here's the actual drum. You can slide it off. And yeah, it looks like it's just kind of worn a little bit. I've got some sandpaper here. This is not very aggressive. It's 150, so it's not super rough. I'm just going to take this and try to clean this inside up a little bit. All right, I think that looks pretty good now. All right, so let's now see about getting these brake pads off. What you do with these is you just this is the little arm. How these things work is when you pull this arm back, or the cable pulls that arm, you see how it twists this lever here and then spreads the brakes out. So again, like I said, these pads look almost new, but it's not. And maybe I could try to clean these pads up, but I've already bought the new pads, so I'm not going to worry with trying to clean these pads up and make them work. I'm just going to go ahead and replace them. So what we need to do is just pull this apart here, and these should pop off. Try not to smash my fingers. There we go. And then just going to bring those over like that, and they're off. So we will put the new pads on the same way. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. And I did get a new O-ring, but this O-ring looks fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. So let me just clean this inside up a little bit. All right, I think that's good enough. Doesn't have to be sparkly clean and new, but I just want to get some of that old brake dust and stuff out of there. So let's get our new pads and fit them on there. Here are our new pads. And grab these. I want to make sure they're the right ones. I'm going to compare them to the ones that came out. Let's see. Get the springs off of these. All right, let's orient them the same way. And they do indeed look like the same pads. Let's see, width-wise. Yeah, they look exactly the same. Okay, so let's get these put back on here. What I'm going to do is get the springs on first. Come on. Okay. Well, easier said than done, I guess. Okay, there we go. There we go. And then just kind of, get in there, Mr. Spring. There we go. Spread these apart like this. And then we'll put them back on just like we took them off. And the way we do that is we can fold them basically, or pull them apart a little bit, either one, and they're just going to go right over those little, this little nub and that little nub there. You want to make sure they're on there all the way. Okay, there we go. So again, just make sure they're over the lip here and the lip here on this piece, and make sure they move freely, and they do. All right, so we're ready to start reassembling everything now. Let's wipe this out a little bit. We've got a little bit of grease in here, which really doesn't matter, but I'm just gonna go ahead and wipe it out anyway a little bit. Clean it up. Get this lip, the lip right here, cleaned up. That's where it's gonna seat back together. I just want to make sure that's nice and clean. All right, that looks good. Now the first thing we want to do is slide our brake drum back on that we've cleaned up. Get it in the splines. There we go. And then next we will slide our hub back on with the brake shoes in it. And let me clean this up just a little bit. This O-ring looks good, but let me wipe that up just a little bit to make sure there's not much dirt in there. Just gonna try to clean this up just a little bit. said, I bought a new O-ring for this, but this one looks fine. There's nothing wrong with that O-ring. So I think I will just leave that as it is. Okay, so this came off, if you remember, like this. So I'm going to slide it back on the same way. And then the pad should just slide right into the drum. There we go. All right. Now you see here when I slid this back on, there's a little rubber O-ring too that went around that, which I didn't pull out because it was seated in the bearing. But if that does come out, you need to remember to put that back in. So let's put our nuts back in. Yep, not there. And here. So let's go ahead and run those up. Now I'm going to just tighten these up by hand and pull that cover in. I don't know if you can see the gap here, but I'm just pulling that cover up evenly. I'm going to do as much as I can by hand first before I start putting any kind of wrench on it. And I just wiggled the pads there a little bit to make sure everything is good. Tell you what I'm going to do. This may sound strange, but this nut, if you notice, it's a little rustier. It's the one that was down here on the bottom in that pan. I'm going to put it back down there just so that it looks nice up top. That one's already rusted. Let it continue to be kind of rusty down there, and we'll put the nice one back up top. Obviously not needed, but it's just something I feel like I want to do. All right. Let me see if I can find a torque spec for this. Otherwise, it's going to be the old hand feel. Like I said, this is aluminum, so you don't want to tighten it too tight. It has an O-ring there to keep any dirt, water, anything out. So it's not like it has to be really tight at all. Okay. Let's see. Now, there we go. Oh yeah, nice. All right, let me see if I can find a torque spec for that, and then we'll torque them up. Otherwise, I'm going to just tighten them. So I searched around the web and I really couldn't find the torque specs for these. So I'm just going to tighten them by hand. Like I said, this doesn't have to be super tight. It's not like an engine. It's not anything that's going to hold compression or anything like that. And it has the O-rings and things in here so that it just needs to be tight enough to keep the water out. So and as you saw when I took it off, they weren't that tight to begin with. So I'm just going to snug them up here. And I'm going around, kind of bringing each one up at a time. Okay, that feels good. That feels good. That feels good. You can kind of tell when they stop turning. I'm not putting a great deal of pressure on them, but that should be good. And let's go ahead and put the nuts back on here, and then we'll get the hub back on, and then we'll put the cables back on and adjust those. So as I mentioned, you see this little O-ring here. It kind of popped off when I slid the hub back on. It didn't come off when I pulled it on, but I'm just going to push that back in there. So make sure you don't lose that O-ring. Then I'm going to put things back on in the order that they came off. First, you've got this flat washer, and you can see this clean side was to the inside. The dirty side was out. So we'll put that back on. That's going to go there. And then next you have this second washer that's kind of like a thrust washer, and you see it's beveled, but it helps you out here too. You can see here it's got outside, so it's got written on it which side goes out if you happen to drop it or forget the way it goes. So it goes like that. Then we've got the flat nut that goes on next, and again, I want to clean those threads up a little bit there. And here's what I'm saying with these fine threads, you don't want to force it. You see, I'm just kind of spinning it on there, and because if you get it cross threaded, you can really mess your threads up easily with these fine threads. Okay. I'm going to get my big adjustable and tighten this just a little. And again, I'm not quite sure how tight that needs to be, other than to, keep your axle in place. I'm going to tighten that up super tight. So once again, I couldn't really find a torque spec for this nut, but I'm just holding it by my hand and spinning the wheel here until okay, so then it just kind of stopped. So it's seated right there, and I think that's probably going to be good because again, there's nothing that you need to really torque to tighten up. As long as your wheel is not moving an axle. Like I said, I held this with my hand and spun the wheel with my other hand and just brought it up until it stopped, until hand tight. I think that's going to be good. If you have any doubt, you might want to check your manual and see if you can find any kind of torque specs. But I couldn't, and I think this is going to be all right. Now the next thing we want to do is put our last nut on the outside. And again, I'm just going to lightly spin that to make sure it's in the threads and not cross-threaded. Okay, now I'm going to hold, just kind of lock this down. I'm going to hold my brake here. Just kind of lock this nut down on here, on the other one. I think those are pretty much in alignment there. Okay, that looks good. Now we're ready to put our cables back in. To bring these back over here. And you remember we put all of our hardware back on so we wouldn't have to worry about finding any of that. So we take these off, and I'm going to slide this back through the hub. And then through the lower portion here. I'll put my little round nut in. Let me slide this back out. I'm going to put my spring on first. And then I'm going to slide this little round peg in so that when I put my cable through, I'm going to go through there. Okay, let me get a hold of the cable here. There we go. Okay, so you can see it's through this nut, and I'll put the little wing nut back on right now to get started. I'm going to do the same thing for the other cable. This one is for the foot cable, and the one I have in my hand is for the hand lever on the handlebar. So put that through. Got our round piece we put in there. Okay, get our spring back on. And then we just kind of stick this through, get it in the hole there. Takes a little bit of fiddling with it to get it in, but shouldn't be too hard. There we go. Got that in. Okay. Now we've got them both on. So you want to tighten these up just enough so that it's snug, and then when you that you're not pulling up on the brake at all. That looks pretty good there. And let me tighten this one up a bit, and you'll see this part go to the front. Oops. So I'm going to leave those right there for now, and then I'll just ride it and see how the brakes feel. Okay, so we got the cables back in. Now we just need to put the hub back on, and then we'll put the wheel back on, and we should be able to test it out. Okay, so I've got the hub here, and we just need to slide the hub back onto the splines. There we go. And we have our castle nut. They call this a castle nut because it looks like the top of a castle. These are the little turrets where you shoot your bow and arrow out of. And the purpose of this type of nut is so that once you tighten it, you can put a cotter pin or some other type of retaining pin through it and keep the nut from coming off. All right, so that was a 30 millimeter socket. Yes, so let's tighten this up. All right, so I want to see where I am relative to one of the slots here and the hole. So it looks like we got a little bit more to go. Just a hair more. All right, now that's lined up. Our cotter pin should go back in. There we go. I'll just tap this through. Where is my hammer? It's over there. Let's see if I can get it. A little bit overkill for this, but there we go. Let me turn that to the side. I can't find my other pliers. I'll just turn that to the side like that. There we go. And then I'll bend those out. Here's my other pliers. So this one just goes around the top here. Like that. And this one goes to the back like that. Good enough. Now we're ready for the tire. So I cleaned this out a little bit. I just knocked the dirt out of it. I didn't really wash it up because it's going to get dirty again as soon as I go through the mud. So let me get under here, and I'm going to put the screws back in the order they came out. And I set them up there on the ground in the kind of the same orientation that they came out. Because one did have a collar on it, so I wanted to make sure I got that collar back in the right place. What the heck? Why is that not going in there? There we go. That was a little difficult. I got that one started. Here's the one that had the collar, and it went back to the back here. Get it going. Yep. There we go. It started. All three of them seem to be different because now this one's got a big washer on the side, and it went here. They were all just a little different. That's why I wanted to make sure they were going back in the right place. Okay. There's the first one. There's a second one. Let me get under here and get this last one. Okay. Okay, got it. Now we're ready to put our tire back on. Go. Get our lug nuts here. Going. And okay. That was a 17. 17 millimeter. Okay, that'll do it. Now it's just a matter of doing a little bit of adjusting, and we should be good to go. So that was it. That's replacing the brake shoes on a 2018 Honda TRX 250. If you find this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out a lot. And remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell notification so that anytime we post a new video, you'll get notified. Thanks for watching.